Objection.
And I see my colleague from Alaska here, and I'm conscious that she's got some time constraints as well, so I'll move along. And I'm digressing from the text here, but I just find it incredible that people are calling up and bellowing about this, how upset they are that we've asked for some restraint in this area. Do they have any idea what's going on? I find it just mesmerizing almost that people would actually calling up and bellowing because somehow they're going to ask to be restrained in providing exorbitant incomes for people at a moment like this. This country is hurting of ours. We're in the deepest economic crisis in the lifetime of any living American. And they're worried about their pay. Our system of economy is at risk in these days. And we'll be judged by history as to whether or not we can respond intelligently to it. And to be preoccupied over whether or not someone's going to get a bonus of $1 million or 500 or 2 or 10 million, whatever else it is so misplaced energy and attention that it's stunning to me that the very people out of the community that's directly involved in this from its inception to today are the ones calling about that issue. Breathtaking. The stories we've seen in recent weeks are giving themselves bonuses, vacations, and the like. And again, I don't want to dwell on it because it ought not to be the major focus of our attention. We ought to get beyond that. We've got much bigger issues to grapple with and deal with. I have families in Connecticut that have lost everything as a result of this financial crisis. They don't have jobs, they don't have health care, they don't have their retirement, and they may have lost their home. And when they hear about the complaints coming out of these towers of financial success about pay cuts, for all these people have gone through, they deserve, I believe, better than having to put up with the behavior from some of the most fortunate among us, some of who've made the kind of decisions, frankly, that got us into this crisis. I've said again and again, if your institution is receiving funds through TARP, this assistance program, at the same time paying out lucrative bonuses, then I think we should look at every possible legal means to have that money come back and ban the practice outright for high-paid executives going forward. As a result of the inclusion of this language in the legislation, here we will prohibit bonuses to the 25 most highly paid employees of large companies that receive TARP funding and severely limit other performance-based bonuses as well. It will empower the Treasury Secretary to get back any bonuses or compensation paid to executives at these companies based on false earnings reports or anything else later found to be materially inaccurate or misrepresentative of what was occurring. It will also give shareholders the right to vote on executive pay for these firms. And it will strictly prohibit golden parachutes for senior executives. Because of this bill, we will now provide far more safeguards than exist today, measuring whether executive compensation plans pose a risk to the financial health of the company and preventing manipulation of earnings reports. The President told the world a few weeks ago that a new era of responsibility had begun. It's time our executives of these companies understood that message. The second issue I'd quickly like to discuss is transit. The bill dedicates some $8.4 billion to transit issues. Connecticut alone will receive some $137 million, which will meet many important needs in our state. The congestion, Route 95 through Connecticut, other arteries of transport are really under tremendous, and transit assistance and support is long overdue. This bill provides a needed assistance. The American Public Transit Association has said that some $48 billion worth of transit projects can be completed over the next 2 years. Therefore, jobs being created, putting people back to work. I think this is valuable not only in the short term of job creation, but long-term economic growth for investments in transit. Transit is not only about being shovel-ready, it's also future-ready. Ridership is already at record levels. Traffic congestion, our metropolitan areas is getting worse, and our population is growing by another 50% by the year 2050. And I'm particularly pleased the legislation includes $100 million to establish and implement a program to provide assistance to transit agencies to become more energy efficient as well. This is a very important part of this bill, and there are a number of other provisions in here which provide that kind of assistance as well. The third issue I want to mention is an area where I think we fell short in this bill, and that is the failure to include the amendment that I offered along with Mel Martinez of Florida that would require the administration to use $50 billion of the TARP money to attack the root cause of this economic crisis, and that is foreclosures, along with the provision Mel Martinez wrote dealing with a safe harbor so we could avoid the kind of litigation that may slow down some of these workouts that occur. That was taken out of the bill. I regret that. I think it was a mistake. We're trying to get to the root cause of the problem. It's the foreclosure issue. Senator Martinez, I think, had a very, very good idea. It was adopted unanimously here by a voice vote. had no cost associated of any measurable amount. Why it was taken out, I don't quite understand. We fought hard to keep it, Mr. President, but it's gone. It will create problems in terms of mitigating the foreclosure issue. And clearly, we want the $50 billion of the TARP money used for foreclosure mitigation. This body approved $1.3 trillion in tax cuts at a time when unemployment was 4% and our economy was in fairly good shape. Today, with an unemployment rate of 7.6% and headed upward, and as many as 8 million foreclosures potentially on the horizon, we're dedicating less than $800 billion to jumpstart our economy. Meanwhile, nearly 10,000 families enter foreclosure every day, as I mentioned earlier. In December alone, there were 2,000 foreclosures in my state, and I know other states like California, Arizona, Nevada, and Florida have much more than we do. Across this country, 8 million homes are underwater, and that is their mortgages exceed the value of their homes. These are some of the items in the bill. There are some items in the bill to stop foreclosures, including legal aid to protect against foreclosures, but frankly, I wish we had done more, and my hope is in the coming days we're told we're going to hear a detailed plan on how we can mitigate the foreclosure epidemic that is continuing to create the kind of problems we're facing. So while I'm disappointed we did not codify the requirements that I mentioned a moment ago, I'm pleased that the Treasury Secretary has pledged to dedicate at least $50 billion to preventing foreclosures. Our law would have made it statutorily required. This, we hope, will occur, but we have no requirement any longer here that will occur, or the Martinez Amendment that would have assisted, I think, very, very substantially. Quite frankly, that is a step that should have been taken months ago in the previous administration, but there was no interest in it, unfortunately, despite the fact that expert after expert has warned that unless you get to the bottom of the residential mortgage market, the economic crisis will persist, and they're exactly right. So my hope is we're going to see a change in direction and resources committed to the underlying problem of our economic issues. While we hold this administration's feet to the fire, I do believe they recognize that unless we act now to stop foreclosures and put a tourniquet on this crisis, the hemorrhaging will only get worse. The number of layoffs will increase, more businesses will shutter their doors, and more Americans will suffer. Mr. President, this bill, we begin to get our economy moving again. And while I said at the outset here, this is not a moment of great joy at all. We shouldn't have had to have been in this moment here to talk about this, but we're here. And while I know there are many who said they're going to vote against this, I think they bear a responsibility of having offered some alternative ideas, because just saying no is not enough, in my view. And that is the conclusion of almost every economist who has analyzed this issue over the last number of weeks and months. And so I commend again the efforts of Senator Reid, our majority leader, Nancy Pelosi, the efforts made. I commend Susan Collins, Olympia Snowe, of course, our inspector, who have agreed to work with this and come up with a package like this as well. We wouldn't be at this point without them, and I recognize that. And so I appreciate the efforts they've made. I had a number of amendments that were adopted here unanimously that were dropped. I know some of my colleagues are concerned that some of their amendments were dropped as well. I know Senator Sessions mentioned one that he was interested in, the E-Verify program dealing with immigration. It's currently authorized through March. Spending bill in a couple of weeks, I'm told there's a provision to extend the authorization through September 30th. This is a program that, when fully funded, will be operational for hires funded by the stimulus bill for companies participating in the program, and I commend him for it. It's a good idea. It got dropped, or he didn't get a chance to offer, I think was the case. I know how he feels. I had that happen as well. I think a lot of us did around here, and so hopefully we'll get it taken care of, but he's not unique in that regard, I would say, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, I see my friend and colleague from Alaska, who I know has her thoughts he wants to express on this as well, but again, my thanks to those who put us together. We need to get back on our feet again, and obviously unleashing the clogged up credit markets is a critical issue, but also providing that jolt that this stimulus package will provide is also necessary if we're going to complete the effort to do what we can to improve the economic conditions in our country. And for those reasons, I will be supportive of this bill, and I yield the floor.